All right, everybody, welcome to this workshop. This is, I'm quite excited to be introducing Anjalee Narentherin. Sorry if I, I hope I got your last name.
All good. You got it.
Okay, good, thank you. And Anjalee, we've had workshops from Anjalee in the past, and she's always done an amazing job explaining what she does as a person and what she has done in her life as a young woman who has really achieved amazing results with her robotics competitions and with all her business. She's got her own business called MyStartupDojo, and in that my Startup Dojo, she helps um, young people start their own businesses, and she gets mentors, incredible mentors from Wharton and people who are associated with Wharton University, and she does so much for people all around. So I'm not going to carry on about Anjalee because I want her to start. She's going to be explaining tonight how to apply for a university and get into an incredible university, and how to create that portfolio that will help you get in, and what really is going on right now in this world, and so that you know how to be successful too. Okay, so and just for everybody who doesn't know me, I'm Kim Langen. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Spirit of Math, and I'm thrilled to bring Anjalee here today for you. Okay, so Anjalee, it's off to you. I'm going to turn off my video now. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Kim, for that very kind introduction. It's so great to be here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today into this event. Um, that really excited to be sharing a little bit more about myself. Um, Hopefully, shining some light as to how we can maybe debunk the university application process. I know it can be very intimidating, very scary at times. So kind of debunking what it's actually about from personal experience, from other stories, and sharing how you can use that information to help set yourself up for success going forwards. So I'm going to share my screen and walk you through this workshop. So thank you again for joining, and let's dive in. So first off, let me introduce myself. My name is Anjalee. I am the 18-year-old founder of Startup Dojo and also a successful high school entrepreneur. So why am I relevant? Sorry, it keeps moving. Oh. So why might this presentation topic be relevant to me? Well, I also received over $200,000 in university scholarships coming out of high school. I was admitted into all of the Canadian programs that I applied to. This includes a full ride scholarship offer from UBC. I got admitted into very competitive programs like University of Waterloo's Computer Science program, and much more. I also received scholarships like the TD Scholarship and STEAM Horizons coming out of high school as well. So now I guess the question that's probably on most of your minds is how did I do it? How did I get that result? Especially considering how competitive university and scholarship applications are today. So before I answer that question, I'm gonna make you wait for just a second. I want to put ourselves in the shoes of the universities. Let's imagine for a moment that we are them, so that we can better understand how, these institutions are thinking about selecting you, what's going on in their mind, and from understanding that, we can kind of reverse engineer what makes a successful application. So bear with me. What are universities looking for? Let's dive into that. In one nutshell, I think I would summarize it to leaders. Universities want to select future leaders, right? They have a certain number of seats that they can allocate, and they have the power to choose a few people to give those seats. They want to make sure that the people they're choosing are going to be very likely, or the most likely, people to succeed in the future. Because if their student becomes, a president or a CEO of some big company, that is a home run for that institution, right? It's organic, it's free marketing that will live for a very long time. And if they have the power to choose students, that's the kind of student they want to choose. People they think are going to become future leaders. Of course, it's very hard to predict who that's going to be. No one has a psychic ball that they can just look into and say, oh, you are going to be the one. That's not possible. But there are indicators that we can imagine universities use to help maximize their odds of finding said next future leader, right? And I'm sure these indicators, you've all heard of these words before. It's like leadership, passion, grit. Seeing that and seeing strong evidence of those indicators throughout someone's high school career, that is what universities are looking at to guesstimate whether or not you are going to be a future leader, right? Do you have the leadership, the passion, the grit? And have you demonstrated it consistently over your educational career? So now let's backtrack to the original question, the question we started with. How did I do that? How did I have that successful outcome when it came to university applications and scholarship applications? Well, I think in retrospect, my application happened to hit on a lot of those key indicators that universities would have been looking for. So leadership, passion, grit, and showing those qualities over a sustained period of time. I demonstrated a story that set me apart. I demonstrated leadership by solving real problems and consistently solving problems over my high school career. And I also created impact towards something that I cared about. So let me actually paint the story for you. So for context, this is the story that I actually told in my university applications. So for those who don't know, when you're applying to different schools, of course, there's a grade component. Do you have a high enough average? But on top of that, there's a component that revolves around your story as a human being, right? What kind of activities did you contribute to? What did you build? What did you work on? This comes through in your extracurriculars and also the essays that you share with the universities and the scholarships you're applying to. As you can imagine, there are lots of people with good grades, right? It's much harder to have there are lots of people with good grades. What actually sets you apart comes in the second piece of that application. It's the who are you piece, right? What is the story that you created? Did you demonstrate leadership, passion, and grit through your extracurriculars and the story you tell in your essay, right? And setting yourself up for success involves writing a good story by living it when you're in high school. So enough backstory. Let me explain what my story was for as an example to help clarify what I'm trying to say. So here's the story that I told in my application, which is the actual story of my life. I've always been a huge tech nerd. I started coding and robotics when I was around 10 years old. I participated in robotics competitions for most of my elementary school life and also middle school and high school. And as I think Kim mentioned earlier, I was fortunate enough to become a robotics world champion in high school. And then also in high school, I took that passion that I had for STEAM, and I observed a problem that was very personal to me. This problem was representation in STEM or STEAM. I noticed that I was always the only girl in the room when it came to robotics or tech or coding. And that was really personally frustrating to me. So I set out to not just complain about the problem, but also do something about it. First, come up with an idea on how to solve it, and then implement it. Fast forward to the end of my high school career, I've now spent a little under 2-3 years building an organization that actually solved that problem I was so passionate about, increasing representation and diversity in STEM. This organization did not make any money, but what it did do was create meaningful impact. I was able to grow a team around that idea to build up this organization, and we were able to impact over 1,000 people. This is a powerful story to tell, a powerful story, and it seems very compelling to university for a few reasons. Number one, it shows sustained growth over a long period of time, right? I'm not someone who just claims to be passionate. I actually did something about it and worked on building it for a number of years. It shows leadership because it demonstrates that I can solve real problems, right? I can turn ideas into real problems. That's what makes leaders. And I was also able to create impact. So these few things in combination are a strong indicator for the university that you have what it takes to be a future leader, right? Regardless of whether or not they pick you, you're going to do something pretty interesting. Being able to paint that kind of picture for yourself really sets your application up to be, at the top of the crop and set you up for the best success. So we spent a little bit of time kind of analyzing my application and the story that I was able to tell. To help it sink in a little bit more, let's look at a few more stories that are currently being written, some portfolios that are currently being cultivated by current high school students and what they look like. And let's look at if they seem like they're doing a good job at telling a powerful story for universities. So again, before we jump into them, let's summarize some of the key indicators for what does a good story look like. So a good story happens over a long time frame, right? Universities want to see that you have potential to build something real. So a long time frame is much more attractive than just doing some small project over a weekend. They want to see a story that demonstrates leadership because fundamentally they're looking for future leaders. They want to see something that demonstrates passion. They want to see that you are a unique individual. You don't just do things because other people are doing them. You do them because you care. You care about certain things and you want to cultivate that passion and work towards that passion. And they also want to see growth, right? You're somebody who can teach yourself new skills. You're somebody who can jump into scary situations and overcome challenges, even when maybe you don't know you can, right? They want to see that kind of grit and that growth. So a good story will have these 4 components. Keep these in mind as we look at some of the coming examples. So with this example, we have a student who, like many other students, she was very passionate about climate change. So remember the passion piece, that's where that comes in there. She came in at 13 years old. She was very passionate about climate change. Her problem was that she didn't just want to talk about climate change with her friends and her teachers. She'd done enough of that in class. She wanted to do something more, right? She's 13 years old. She wants to do something more to impact that problem in a meaningful way. So she came up with an idea for this water-saving hardware device that actually makes a meaningful dent into that issue at scale. it helps conserve very large amounts of water and make a dent at that issue of building eco-friendly products and helping the environment. Then she didn't just leave the idea, she took the idea and she worked with mentors to turn that idea into a reality. And then fast forward a few months from that, she was invited to pitch onto Dragon's Den. So this is the hit national show produced by CBC that is viewed by over 30 million Canadians. At 13 years old, she pitched her business and she pitched this idea and this product on national television. This is impressive because, again, it hits those key indicators we were talking about. Passion, grit, leadership. She took an idea and she turned it into something real. It also demonstrates this idea of creating a long timeline, a long story where you can show consistent growth. Now, by the time she graduates, she's going to have a 4-year leadership story to tell on her university applications because she started when she was 13, right? That's very, very unusual, and it's unusual in a good way. It's going to give her such a huge edge if she's already racked up this great of a story by the time she's 14. Imagine what it'll be at 15, 16, and finally 17 when she applies. That's so much more content. That's going to be such a rich story compared to anybody else. And she's going to continue having cool accolades like pitching on Dragon's Den and so much more. The next story is from a student who started his journey at 14. So his story started a little bit like this. He's a at 14, he was very, very shy, but he was passionate about cars and also about growing as an individual, growing as a leader. Like many people his age, like many people in the audience probably, he was very excited to get his license, to save up for a car, and he wanted to figure out how he could work smart to achieve that goal and do it independently from his parents, right? He set this goal for himself and he wanted to work smart on how to get there. So he founded a car detailing business at 14. In order to do that, he had to make huge leaps and bounds in overcoming his shyness. Within the first year of this business, he converted his entire neighborhood into paying customers, right? So again, he also had an idea and he turned it into something real, and he did it even though it was hard.
Angelique, we
Yeah.
only see half of his face, the only top part. So if you can move up the screen a bit. There, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Good now?
Yes, it's great. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. And as the next step in his story, he's going to be hiring other young people to continue growing this business and taking it onto the next level, right? That's very, very exciting. So just like with the last example, this story also demonstrates those 4 indicators. It sets Jack apart from the crowd because it concretely demonstrates grit. He had to overcome his shyness. And even though it was very hard and he had to do things that really scared him and he didn't want to do, he did it anyways. And he grew and he became a better leader, a better person because of it. It demonstrates passion because he didn't give up when things got hard. He decided on his goal and he figured out how to work smart and build something around that. And it also demonstrates leadership because, again, like Piranha, he was able to take an idea and build it into something real and continue to grow it over a long period of time, right? He didn't just give up after the first customer. He didn't just get bored. He kept growing every single week, and asking, how can I get better? How can I get better? And now he's going to be growing the team and building it into a concrete and growing business. So very strong indicator of leadership. And the last example I'd like to share for today is a student who jumped in at age 15. So her entire life, Kiara had always been passionate about helping others feel good. She'd always loved experimenting with natural products like coconuts, and making cosmetics and really cool products from her hands. At the age of 15, she turned that passion into Pawi. This is a real cosmetics business, where she started by just making these custom coconut formulations, coconut oil, uh, and then eventually it grew into a whole line of coconut inspired products that are completely natural, and really resonate with her passion for helping people. And this month, she's now gearing up to launch that product onto store shelves. Again, this story demonstrates leadership. She turned an idea into a reality. It demonstrates passion because she had to overcome lots of challenges, challenges that would terrify anybody, that would terrify your average 50-year-old, like negotiating with business owners. She was negotiating with people twice her age, three times her age, and having successful outcomes, which is very scary, but she overcame that fear and those challenges and stuck with it. And again, just like the previous examples, because she started early, she's going to have several years of growing this leadership story by the time that she's applying to universities, right? By the time she's 17, she's going to have 17 or 18, she'll have 2, 3 years of a long story to tell about the challenges she overcame, the way she grew her business, and really paint her sense of leadership in a unique way and set her apart from everybody else. So, just to summarize again, what are the components of a good story? Now that we've looked at some examples. Once again, the components are: you want to start early, you want to demonstrate leadership by solving real problems, and you want to create impact towards something that you care about. This lets you show off passion, grit, leadership, and also do it in a long-term way. So I've kind of been talking for a good amount of time now. So let's follow this link for a bit of a fun activity, a poll, where we can start to hear from you a little bit, understand your passions, skills, and maybe even brainstorm some cool stories for some of the people in the audience today. So let me see if I can put this in the chat. I think if I stop sharing and then I it should be in the chat right now. Can everybody see it if I send it in the chat? Kim, I think you're muted if you're trying to say something.
Yes, thank you very much. If you could just put it in there, that would be great for everybody to have a look at that. And then you can, I guess, Anjalee, do you want to answer questions from in there?
So we'll go to the poll and then I have a few more slides and then we can open up the questions if that works.
Perfect. I'll mute myself and take off my video then. Thank you. Okay, so everybody go to that poll, and I'm going to go with you guys, and we're going to see what this is all about.
Cool. So I think if you just open up the chat function and then there should be a link where you can follow. It might ask you for your name, and then from there you'll be sent to this page. I'll share it on my screen, just so you know.
Guys, something else you could do is please put a thumbs up if you found it. Go to the chat just like you normally would if you're in our teams, and then what you can do from there is yeah, and great. Yeah, you guys got it. Thank you. Okay, now we know you're there. I'm doing it alongside with you, so here we go.
Perfect. Yeah, we see the thumbs in, the thumbs up coming in. Has everybody been able to get in?
So I have a question for you. It asks for, you know, what are you passionate about? How many responses can they put in there, and how many skills can they put in? What would you suggest?
So whatever comes to the top of your mind. So well, I'll leave it open for maybe a few minutes and as many as you can get in. Start with what you're most passionate about. So I guess what comes to mind first. And I will share a screen so we can see. Can everyone see the visualization of the word map, or should I share my screen? If you
Why don't you share your screen for those who aren't going there, and then they can see what's happening, okay?
I can do that. Share screen. Can everybody see the screen now?
Oh, cool. Look what everyone's done. Wow.
So lots of math is what I'm seeing. Lots of math. Some piano, climate change,
So the bigger the
sustainability.
words, the more people have put that in?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a cool representation of, what are more people thinking about. So I see building, finance, wildlife, stitching, coding, circuitry, basketball, skincare, hockey, books, cool space, arts, history. Yeah, and don't be afraid to get very specific. So if you're very specific about some segment of like I don't know, sports or whatever, feel free to share that as well. So I see meditation on there, that's great. Um, specific is good. So I'll leave that open for maybe another minute or two and let you all fill in a few more ideas. There's no limit on how many entries you can send in. So if you think of more, feel free to send them in as well. So lots of a really diverse set of ideas here. I think math and climate change are still winning, and then robotics is a close second. Reading is a close second. Helping others, law.
It says this poll is full. The poll has received the maximum number of responses allowed, just so you know.
Oh, okay. So I guess that
It's done a good job, everybody.
good job, everyone. Good amount of answers. Awesome. So cool. So let's I'm gonna open up another poll. Um and let's activate this. So this poll is about what are your skills currently. So I see some of you have also already put answers into here. Awesome. Let me full screen this. Leadership, coding, math, speaker. And for this, try to think of more, hard skills. So I like um Science is on there, so specific hard skills. So maybe it's, you're really into biology or something like that. Try to get as specific as possible with these entries. Competitive swimmer, that's a good one. Nice and specific. Piano, very specific. Coding, good. Designing. Python, that's very specific. Good. Physics, math, poetry, specific. I like it. Dance, cool. Languages, piano.
Turtle.
Turtle, interesting skill. Maybe this person has a shell they can, go into. Maybe that's the skill.
Mandala designs.
Oh, where's
That's
that?
very specific.
That's very specific. Cool. Mandala. I'm not aware of what that is, but it sounds very interesting. Whoever sent that in. um, awesome. So I think this is also full now. Great. So really great mix here. Thank you everyone for submitting and participating. So I think math, leadership, Python, piano, public speaking, chemistry, communication, poetry, science, those seem to be some of the biggest skills. And some of the biggest passions seem to be math, climate change, robotics, music, reading, sewing, circuitry. Great. Great job, everyone. So the goal of this was, first of all, to get to meet everyone a little bit, get to know a little bit more about all the amazing people in the audience. So thank you for being a part of that. And the second reason for doing this was to see if we can kind of brainstorm, have a little bit of fun, and brainstorm what some potential stories might look like, based on some of the skills and the passions that you all have. So I'm gonna choose two at random, and we're just gonna have fun with it. We're gonna have fun with what an interesting story might look like. So maybe let's try. So I think I see racial justice as one. That's a passion. Um, see elderly, helping the elderly, and I see skills as in meditating. In skills I see meditating. So maybe let's merge those two. So maybe you have a passion. Maybe you're somebody who is a skilled meditator and coder. Let's say you have both those skills, and you're also very passionate about helping the elderly. Because I saw that here. Helping the elderly. Um, you know maybe your grandma, your grandpa has a specific illness that you're really passionate about, um, making an impact towards. So one interesting story could be using those skills for meditation and coding to create some sort of an interesting solution. Um, so that solution can be anything, right? It can be anything. It's about coming up with that solution and building it over a long period over your high school career. So we can do that kind of an example with anything here, because there are so many great skills and passions that I see have been sent in. Um, but that's kind of a piece of how one might start thinking about this story. Start by thinking about your passions and your skills. The more specific that you go, the better. And then ask yourself, how can I use my skills to solve problems in areas that I'm passionate about? Right? So if you're passionate about helping the elderly, go more specific. Is there a specific illness? Is it Alzheimer's? You're really passionate about, doing more about that. Maybe you already know a little bit about coding. So maybe you join a lab, and you contribute in the lab. And then eventually that turns into you coming up with your own idea for a software that would help Alzheimer's patients. And then you build that, right? But a whole journey can kind of evolve once you ask yourself these questions. And the deeper you go, the more specific you get, the better story, the better journey that you can start to create for yourself. I hope that kind of made sense. I hope that was kind of a little bit of a fun activity to share about yourselves, to think about your skills, your passions, and use this to keep thinking about how you can get more specific. What are your skills? What are your passions? So I hope that stays kind of at the back of your mind for now. All right. So I'm still sharing my. Do you see the PowerPoint on the screen now, Kim?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. There we go. So now that we've gotten through that fun activity, let's answer this question from more of a practical perspective, right? I'm sure a lot of you are now asking, okay, this kind of all makes sense: passion, grit, leadership, skills, passions. But how do I actually use this to build myself a winning story? How do I actually do something with this information? If you're asking that, very good question. So if you're here, you are either a student or maybe you're a parent of a student who is above the rest in terms of ambition and grit, right? You're somebody who really wants to strive for success. You're somebody who wants to push yourself to reach new heights. So now the question is, how do you actually harness that talent that you have to set yourself up for that success? A good university application, a good portfolio, a good story is a really key and important step in doing so. But again, how do you do that? How do you even set up yourself for a successful story? How do you cultivate that? From my past experience, working with other students, helping them build up successful stories, and also my experience, here are some things that I found really, really help. So one would be support. It's not popping up. Support from experienced mentors. So these are people who can guide you and help you navigate all the challenges that you're facing. Another thing that really helps is having a community of like-minded peers. Because after all, you end up becoming accumulation of the people you spend the most time with. So having people around you who have similar goals, who are also trying to cultivate a really great story, helps set you apart and helps set you up for success. Another thing that really helps is having some sort of a system to track progress. I think this third piece is really key because this is where most people fall short, right? If this part was easy, then I think everybody would have a winning portfolio, a winning story. But it's not. This part is really hard, and I think this is what cuts most people off. It's very easy to maybe come up with an interesting idea or work on a project over the weekend or for a week or for a month. But it's very hard to build that project or idea over a long term and see it grow into something, very large, where you're able to demonstrate strong leadership, sustained leadership in ways similar to the examples I shared before. That part is hard, right? Sticking with something for the long term. So having some sort of a system to track progress, to keep you motivated, to stay accountable, that is very, 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 very powerful. It's something that I lacked when I was going through it, and it made it much harder for me. And with the stories that I shared earlier, they did have it, and it very much helped. So I've kind of, now that I've shared some factors that will help increase your odds for success, I'm going to address a concern. All these things on their own are hard to get on if you're by yourself just trying to navigate this. That's why Startup Dojo, the program that I've built, was designed with this concept in mind. Remember those students whose stories that I shared earlier? They all went through the program, or they are currently going through the program, and they got access to each of those three components through the program. They got access to experienced mentors like luminaries from places such as Stanford, Harvard, Wharton, and successful founders of multi-million dollar companies, people who can offer insights and industry knowledge that nobody else can't. They got access to a community of like-minded peers. In fact, all the students I mentioned earlier, they were they're all actually good friends who were able to work together, even though they were working on different problems, because they knew each other and they knew that each one of them was pursuing ambitious, hairy goals, just like themselves. It made it that much easier to stay motivated, and to keep going, because their friends were also doing it, right? The people they talked to got what they were going through. And finally, the Startup Dojo program is designed to help young people turn complex problems into bite-sized pieces and make progress every single week. So it's much easier for people in the program to stay on track, to keep moving and keep building up that story. So, of course, this is not the only way to build a compelling story. But having those three pillars baked into one kind of cohesive thing, it really helps, right? It was really core to how we built Startup Dojo, taking the experience that I had had going into university applications and helping create that for more students. It was really baked in. So having that, it does give our students a bit of an unfair advantage. Um, so again, it's not necessary, but it definitely helps. And we saw that with just a few of the stories that I shared earlier, um, from people who'd gone through the program. So thank you so much for tuning in. Feel free to copy over that link if you are interested. And also, now this is a great time for questions. Thank you for listening to that little bit of a lecture there, and I hope it was helpful to everyone who tuned in. If you have any questions, feel free to send them into the chat. I'll stop sharing my screen, and we can. I'm really excited to hear your thoughts, hear your questions, and get to interact with some of you one-on-one.
So while we're waiting for those questions to be typed in there, I think I'd like to just summarize some ideas that you said. First of all, you do need to have good marks, right? That's important.
Yes.
But there's a lot of people with good marks. So that's a start, because people want to see that you've got that grit to get the good marks and that you'll work hard to get there. But then, because there's so many people who have it, you have to differentiate yourself somehow. And you have to make yourself look different than others. And so your story needs to be different. And your story needs to stand out by showing that you've done something and not just gone to school and got good marks. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So, and I really liked, you start early. So you started in grade 8. Um, what if someone is now in grade 10 and they haven't started anything? What would you recommend that they do right now?
Start now. I think just starting as early as you can is always the key. With some of the examples I mentioned earlier, we had somebody who started in grade 10, somebody who started in grade 11. It's just the fact that they took that step earlier than most, right? Even 1 year, 2 years of working on something is much better than nothing. It's really going to set you apart.
Okay, great. Now, someone is asking, how young do you have to be to apply to Dojo?
So we accept students who are in high school currently. We may make exceptions for younger students on a case-by-case basis, but high school is the target, grade 9 to 12.
Okay, great. And then what business program are you doing at Wharton? Do you enjoy it?
Oh, cool. I'm in a double degree program for business and engineering. So degree from the engineering school is going to be in computer science, and then also Wharton is just business degree.
So are you enjoying it?
I will be starting in the fall. I took a year off, and then I'll be
Okay,
starting in the fall.
okay, great.
So we'll see.
Okay. Okay. So, do you have any tips on balancing school and academics while also working on the side projects?
Great question. I think I'd refer back to some of the earlier points I made. So I think having a community is very, very important. I did not have one when I was trying to build my own side hustle venture in high school, and it definitely made it much harder. None of my friends got what I was doing, so it was very frustrating to show up to school and, with a chemistry test, having stayed up until 4 a.m. trying to put out a fire in the business, and none of my friends understood what I was doing. And it was very frustrating. It would have been a lot better if my friends really got what I was going through. So community is important. Try to find other people who are also dealing with similar problems, similar challenges. It makes it so much easier if you have that support network to get what you're going through. Um, and yeah, and don't be set back by your setbacks. Take them as learning opportunities. Um, Having those moments of challenges, of perceived failure, that's what makes you interesting. That's when you learn, right? Those are what give you those really interesting points in your university applications, when you can say, "Oh, I used to be so shy, but then I had to overcome it, and I was knocking on doors and convincing people to buy my product, and I grew. It was really scary. I freaked out for like 3 hours, but then I did it." That's a great story to tell, and now you can and showing that progression. So don't perceive setbacks. Don't let setbacks set you back.
That's a really good point because actually universities also want to see that you were able to overcome the setbacks, and
Yeah.
that's a good trait of a leader. So don't be scared to state those as well. That's great, 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 great tip. Okay, so someone is asking, what does Dojo mostly do? Like, what does you help people, and I think they want specifics. So if someone is going to join up, what would happen?
Great question. So the way Startup Dojo is set up is it helps people who are admitted go from idea to real business to scaling that business. And now this business does not need to be your conventional business, something that makes money. It can also be something like a nonprofit venture that creates impact. The goal is just to help you or, people in the program turn their passions into an idea, implement that idea, and then grow it. So we've had students who've built things from, products to service businesses through not to nonprofits. There's one student that built a nonprofit to help educate underserved youth. So very large range, but in summary, it's develop an idea you're passionate about and grow it. And that's what we help you do.
Awesome. Okay. So here's an interesting question. Where could I start if I don't have a certain strong passion? Should my story relate to my future career path?
That's an interesting question. I would I would question the initial statement about not having a strong passion. I think there has to be something that you care about, that you really do care about. Think about what interests you. What do you think about when you're bored? Like there has to be something there. So I would question the initial statement. Maybe this would be a moment of reflection for you to say, okay, there has to be something I'm passionate about. There has to be something I care about. What is that? What is that thing you care about? And it doesn't need to be conventional. It doesn't need to be something that everybody else is talking about. I'm sure if you really start asking yourself questions, there'll be something that stands out. So that would be my advice there.
Okay, and the other thing I would say, because I've been on the admissions committee too, of a couple of universities, and one of the things that we look for is the fact that you've done something, not what you want to do. You've got to prove that you can do something. So it's not about your future aspirations, because a lot of people can say, these are my future aspirations. They want people who've actually done something already. So I just thought I would really emphasize that. Okay. Another thing I think is so important is you talked about community and a group of other people who are like them. From just even meeting Anjalee right now and what she's done in the past, she attracts a lot of people who have done a lot too and have had passion. And if you're looking for that, it's important that you do find them. I know we've been looking for and thinking about doing something within our Spirit of Math community. And what can we do to attract people? And when I met Anjalee, I thought, wow, Anjalee can really help with this and help all the students there who have this. And so many of you have incredible passion. You've got incredible capabilities. And you just, sometimes you're not necessarily seeing what you've got right in front of you. So I think there's another question here is that, if I was to, would you recommend opening a business in high school? Isn't that too early? And I think you can answer it, and then maybe I'll tell a little story about myself too when I was in high school.
Yeah, I do not think it is too early. In fact, everyone in Startup Dojo is doing that. So no, no is the quick answer. I'll pass it
I
off to Kim
agree.
now.
I agree. I started two businesses. My brother did three, and it was just because we just thought it'd be fun. And there's a lot of little things you can do, even if you were like one of the businesses I started was even I was a ballet dancer. And so I started teaching ballet, and then I started choreographing for a lot of different organizations. And so that was my one of my first passions. And I started that when I was in high school because I needed to earn money to go to university. And so that's what I did. And sometimes that's what pushes people to get out and do something a little different is that you need to figure out what to do. So everybody try and think of that because I think what Anjalee has stated here is critically important for you that you do differentiate yourself. You do figure out your story. People read your stories and people like stories and it's something that you can tell everybody. And your story may be more exciting than you realize too. Anyway, I'm just going to how do you time manage is another question which I thought was really good.
How do you time manage? That's a great question. Um, I think it helps to have a few clear priorities. And that's why having some sort of direction as to what your passion is, what you want your story to be, is very helpful because it helps you set those priorities very clearly up front. So, if you're trying to get into a good university, then grades need to be a priority. So make sure you make time to do that part, but also building up the story piece, right? So if it's a business, if it's something else, if it's some software, that should also be a clear priority that you are making time for, in addition to your one or two other priorities.
People also universities like to see that you're giving back to community too. And
Right.
so do you have any suggestions on that for students?
Yeah. So for me, I guess I can start by answering it from more of a personal lens. So for me, from when I was in high school, um, the story I cultivated happened to help the community because I happened to actually be passionate about a community related issue. So that was a little bit easier on my end. Um, but I think for a lot of people, especially when I was in high school, saw problems in the community that upset them, or saw problems in greater society that upset them. So taking that as a catalyst for your next action would be a great way to not only do something you care about, but also set yourself up for a good university application. So if you are thinking about that, maybe keep the community-minded aspect in your rearview mirror. And if there are community-related issues you do care about, don't be afraid to jump into that.
That's a really good point, because there was a student with Spirit of Math, and he, several years ago, he's now gone on to university, but when he was young, he raised a lot of money for something that he was very passionate about. And he went on the corner of the street and he was selling, I forget what exactly he was selling, but he ended up selling a lot of it and raised a lot of money for this initiative. Well, he was recognized by the UN, and he ended up being a representative, the student representative for UN. So, he didn't do it to get to the UN. He did it because he literally, he wanted to raise money for this, and it ended up being quite a big, much bigger venture than he had anticipated. But, and he was, the front page of all of UN throughout the world as a representative. It was kind of cool. You never know where it's going to go, and it's just a start. So I've got, here someone has asked, how do you balance between studies, your job, and your social life?
Very good question. How do you balance between studies, your job, and your social life? Uh, I think it's about for me, what really helped was trying to make time of even like the in-between moments. So I'd be doing homework on the train to school. I would use class time very effectively, so making sure everything got done um, as quickly as possible. So trying to minimize procrastination helps a lot. And then once you do that, then there are more gaps that you can use for social life or job. So being really, really smart about your time. Don't let minutes go to waste. If you have 15 minutes on the train, you can be doing math homework. Just get that out of the way.
I thought I was the only one who did that. That's good. Okay, so how did you decide which career pathway you want to pursue, and what made you choose it? And this is our last question, I think. Yeah.
Got it. How did I choose the career pathway? Um, that's actually very funny because I think it relates back to the core theme of this presentation. It's in cultivating that story, I realized that I really care about helping people. I really love technology, and I love business as an avenue for helping people with technology. So um, uh, I only realized that when I started to build that venture in high school, because I got to experience it firsthand and realize this is probably the coolest thing I've ever done. And the reason I did it was because I loved it so much, right? So setting your sight on something, setting an ambitious goal in high school, starting a business, whatever it is, pursuing that story helps you understand who you are and what you want. So that's at least it helped me. So I would strongly recommend starting that.
Thank you. I think you've made your point. And I hope everyone has enjoyed this. Thank you so much, Anjalee. This has been very, very helpful. What I would ask everybody is, if you have some other ideas and other topics that you would like us to talk about, could you please send it to info@spiritofmath.com, and that could help. Also, remember that you can get in touch with Anjalee through that. Can you just put the your link in there again for the startup My Startup Dojo,
Oh,
please?
for sure.
And then that way people can go there and find out, because Anjalee is a great resource to even reach out to and get some help. So everyone is saying thank you. And thank you everybody for coming. Really appreciate you being here, and I hope it has helped you. Sincerely hope that it has helped you and that you can build a great story for yourselves. So we'll just wait for Anjalee to put that link up. Great, you did it. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Okay,
everyone.
goodbye,
Thank you,
Kate,
Kim.
and goodbye. Yeah, take care, everybody.
Take care. Bye bye.